Alright you guys, so today I'm going to show you how I get the door handle and lock mechanism out of your e90, 92, 93, I think they're all the same BMW. The issue we're going to be fixing today is the door handle is not returning when you pull it unless you kind of give it a tap, and it's difficult trying to use this lock. I haven't really used it. I have electronic locks, so there's really no need, but when battery dies I want to make sure I can get inside the car. So behind all the door handles you'll see there's these little rubber plastic caps that line right up with the door handle. There's a 5mm or 4mm, I'm sorry, Allen screw inside there. You want to get your wrench inside there and turn this thing out, and you're going to back it out a good little ways. Eventually this guy is going to start to loosen up, and you can tell when it's ready because generally you can just grab right hold of the cap and yank it right off. Now when it comes to these lock mechanisms, some of them have a little gear in them, some have a little tab inside of them, and you've got pretty much just stick a key inside there and gear jimmy loose as you're trying to take that screw out, and then eventually it'll slip right out. Alright, so we got the key inside there. We're just going to kind of jimmy it around. They don't really like to come out very easily, or at least not the driver's door anyway. All the rest of them seem to slip right out. There we go. Got it out. The door handle kind of locks back. If it doesn't lock out, that's fine. All it is inside there, there's a little tab. I don't know if the lighting's really going to let me show you. Right there, that's a metal tab that runs back in there, and it locks against this little mechanism that holds into your handle, and that's your return spring in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this guy loose. That's just the light. A little bit of trash on mine. Pop that guy loose, that way we don't break it when we do this. We're going to slip this door handle back and wiggle it around. Eventually, as we're pulling out, it'll slip on out. And there you have it. So what we're going to do is they have these little casting marks on here. We're going to clean all these casting marks off, and you see where the rub marks are. We're going to go ahead and hit those rub marks with a little bit of light sandpaper, maybe some Scotch-Brite. What we also have is this lock mechanism, and we're going to soak this thing down with penetrating oil on the inside. I'm just going to work it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it gets easier and easier to move. I don't really have a whole lot of trash in it. It looks pretty clean coming off into my hand, but that grease is probably what was holding it. It looks like there might be a little bit of rust in there. Maybe some steel components on the inside were corroding. Maybe this aluminum up here was rubbing, I'm not quite sure. But she's moving a lot freer now. It was pretty stiff to begin with. Beautiful. So now you want to take a look inside here and just take a look at the way that gear is facing, or whatever it is, the little socket. Sometimes you'll see a sprocket back there, a little gear inside there. That's the other style than what I have. I think that's the later models that have them. This is a 2007, but you can see how it's got that little four-way setup. And if you look at the end of our thing here, it's got the same thing here, one long spade. We want to make sure that when we put this back in there, we're getting it in the same way, so we can either get in there with a screwdriver and turn that guy back, or what I'm just going to do is when I put it in there, I'm just going to wiggle the key and make sure I have it lined up as I pop it back in. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and hit this with some rough sandpaper just to get knocked down, get the big bumps out of it, and just get it ready to sand down. Got a little bit finer sandpaper I'll go to after this. I just want to get these little casting marks from the injection molding of this handle. So when they mold these handles, it all goes through these little ports, and those ports never quite get completely cleaned off from the factory. And it leaves these nasty little marks that'll sometimes snag on stuff. So all I'm trying to do is just get those knocked down so that way they're level with the rest of the surface. That's why I'm not running this thing. Just turn it by hand, go further go on that one. Alright, so we've got pretty well knocked down. If I can get the focus on there. Where's the camera at? So on the ends here, come on, focus on her. There we go. On the ends here, there were some cast marks right on the tips, both sides. Kind of like how you see these ones, but these ones are recessed. These ones aren't bad. These ones stuck out pretty bad. So I went ahead and filed those down. Now we've got some old 180 grit that's probably now like 420 grit. This stuff's ultra fine. I've used the hell out of it. I use it for cleaning up terminals and stuff all the time. It's an old strip that's been laying around. Now we're just going to go ahead and polish it up, knock off the edges, make sure that it's not too aggressive, that it's going to grab, make friction. We're going to kind of half-ass polish this thing real quick. Alright, so I've got those edges pretty well polished up. I didn't get that one knocked down quite as far as I'd like, but that'll do. It'll be smooth enough. It's not nearly as bad. And there's also another spot right here on these BMW handles that seems to be a pretty problem area. And that one, I think, is actually the cause of most of the snagging problems, because it's right in line where these wear marks are, so I assume it gets caught. And that's why these wear marks stop. I don't think that's the full travel of the handle right there. But yeah, so I'm gonna take some Scotch-Brite to it. I'm gonna polish along here. You can see there's some wear there, so I'll polish all along there. And where these holes are, I'm gonna polish those up. There's a little bit of wear in between them, so that'll all get polished. I don't think anything rubs on the inside. Maybe a few little marks right in there. So that'll all get polished up. I don't know how well you can see it. There it is, a little bit. Very, very fine line right there and right there. So we're going to get this all polished up all the way around with some Scotch-Brite and the 180 grit that's no longer 180. Alright, so now I've got it polished as smooth as I can. And there is a lot nicer than what it used to look. I mean, you can still see a few sandpaper marks, but really smooth. That's really smooth. I got a little picky. I hit that again. That's really smooth. This is all smooth. It's all smooth on the inside. That Scotch-Brite really did the trick. So now we're going to throw this all back together with our cleaned up slide, our cleaned up block, and hopefully this should work. So if you look inside there, there's that latch up there in the top. It holds onto a tab when this is pulled all the way back. If this isn't pulled all the way back, and I'm talking about this thing right there at the tip of my finger, if this thing isn't pulled all the way back, it makes it very difficult to try and put this handle in. You gotta get it back into that lock spot. Now one of these doors I didn't want to catch it, and I had to get up in there with a hook and pull it down a little bit and bend it to get it to catch. You could also try putting the door handle in there at the same time as being in there with a screwdriver or something, pulling this guy out, but I feel like that's a lot more difficult than just bending the tab back down and letting it catch like it's supposed to. If you look at the top, that's where it catches. This thing would have focus. It catches right up at the top right there. So now we're gonna go ahead and slip this guy in. Go ahead and get her wiped off a little bit. It's a little muddy outside. Dark stung a little mud on it. Alright, so gotta make sure we've got this guy loose and out of the way. We don't want to slip this in there. As soon as we get it in there, we want to try and tip it back. We want to make sure we get this guy in there. We're not forcing it, breaking nothing. won't trip it like I just did. So now I gotta reset it with the hook. So this is what I was talking about. You take this hook, you get in there, you pull that guy out until it locks. Like this one don't want to lock, so I'm probably going to have to bend that tab back up like I did that other one. There we go. Alright, so it locked. I dropped my Allen wrench, but that's alright. Get this wire out of the way. My other ones didn't have this much wire. Get this guy slipped in there. I want to try and get it behind that thing before it drops like it just did. So I'm going to go ahead and do it off camera, but I think you get the idea. Alright, so now I've got it in there. You can see it's behind that tab and in front of that tab. It'll basically slide right in there just like that once you get in there far enough. You just pull it out and it should go in the rest of the way. And if it don't go in the rest of the way, don't force it, don't worry about it. It'll go back in the rest of the way once you get the lock mechanism back in there. So now we're just going to go ahead and get this guy locked back down on the back side. There's these two little doodads that got to lock up under there. You got to pull that thing right over there. It locks over top. We're going to go ahead and slip our lock mechanism back in. Our lock mechanism was twisted on the inside this way just a little bit. So when we put it back in there, we're going to make sure we twist it that way just a little bit to make sure it all lines up. Make sure the light is locked down all the way. Get it slip in there pretty straight. Give it a little twist. You can see the door handle goes in and that goes in. So now that it's all slipped in flush, the screw on the back side, we're going to tighten up that screw. But before we do that, I like to take a credit card or a couple business cards or something, and we'll slip it right inside that gap to keep that gap nice and equal, and also so that way it doesn't rub when you open up the door handle. So that should take care of your problem on all your EX or e9x series. I think it covers actually quite a few of the BMWs. They have a very similar door handle on just about all of them. Anyway, have a good one, you guys. Thanks for watching.